Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Strange Brews. I'm here with Sean as usual, and tonight we have a special guest, a personal friend of mine, Sam. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. So, we're gonna go over Sam's deck, which is Ruric Thar stacks, which is a deck that Sean, we just mentioned, is a pretty big fan of, and as a stacks deck, of course, I'm a big fan of it myself. But I also want to touch on real quick here, and then later on in the cast, when did you start playing cEDH, Sam?
Pretty recently, like within the last few months, I would say, is when I really started to get into it.
Awesome. So I wanted to have Sam onto the show to talk about his deck and kind of give up some perspective for someone who might be thinking about getting into cEDH but isn't quite sure, the perspective of someone who is in it and I assume has been enjoying it for the first few months. I would hope.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's been fun.
We've got Ruric Thar stacks. What is the general kind of game plan of Ruric Thar? I mean, we've covered a number of stack decks, but Ruric Thar has a few unique things about him. So, Sam, why don't you talk a little bit about Ruric Thar for us? What's your game plan?
So, generally, my game plan is try to get Ruric Thar out as soon as possible. I've managed a couple games to be able to, just drop him on turn 2, which is always, great for me. It just kind of makes everyone else in the pod be like, oh no, every time I cast a spell from here on out I'm going to take 6 damage, and that's kind of how it works. So it's play Ruric Thar and then have a bunch of mana dorks and drop a winter orb that I don't care about because I have a bunch of mana dorks. And then just kind of slowly whittle people down with the Ruric Thar triggers, and he just beats people for 6 every turn. Because most of the time...
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, most of the time they don't have something bigger than him in play, so they either have to jump block, or they just eat the 6.
Ruric Thar, for anyone who's just listening and isn't familiar, his full name is Ruric Thar the Unbowed. He is 4, a red and a green, so 6 mana for a 6/6 legendary creature ogre warrior with vigilance and reach. And he attacks each combat if able, and whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, Ruric Thar deals 6 damage to that player. Wow. So, I think by just reading it, we've kind of, we're kind of hinting at what makes him powerful. He kind of attacks cEDH decks on every axis. He even blocks a crown.
Yeah. He's very large, and people do forget he has reach. Yeah, I've had a couple of Croms when I was early on, just suicide themselves with my Ruric Thar. Just okay.
I know a friend of ours.
You go to attacks? Yes. You attack me? Yes. Okay, I block. What?
A friend of ours, Basil, who we've mentioned before on the cast, when he was playing Elves and Legacy, would natural order into this against Delver decks and just crush their dreams.
Nice.
So definitely a very powerful card across multiple formats. Would you say that you probably win through combat damage or through attrition mostly with Ruric Thar?
Attrition mostly. I mean, combat damage is possible because I do have a Kiki Zealous Conscripts combo to just make a ton of Zealous Conscripts and kill through that, or with all of my, or the majority of my dorks being elves, I can just overrun with a Zuri and just get there, or throw a Triumph for the Hordes out and just kill somebody with Infect. I mean, Ruric Thar by himself, with Triumph, is a 7/7 with Infect at that point, so that's he can just get there sometimes by himself.
For sure.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
But I do also have a couple ways. I have a Dockside Timur Sabertooth combo to get infinite mana, and then I can just Comet Storm.
Nice.
or
It's a way to
Earthcraft
get
Squirrel
infinite
Nest.
mana without triggering Ruric Thar once, which is pretty nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Also, Earthcraft Squirrel Nest combo. Just
Ah,
make
the
infinite
old
squirrels.
classic.
And then
Boy.
I have Concordant Crossroads to give them all haste.
Very nice.
You are ready for the squirrel cards that just got spoiled in Modern Horizons.
Oh yeah, I saw that. The
Ugh.
Chatterfang or whatever his name is.
And the rest of the squirrel precon ideas. Yep.
Yeah.
um,
There's so many.
Sam, what would you say draws you to Ruric Thar as a deck? Because as we mentioned up top, you're new to the format, so out of all the decks that you had to choose from, why did you finally settle on Ruric Thar as your first cEDH deck?
So when I was wanting to get into it, my first impression of cEDH without having actually played it was just like, oh, it's win on turn 3 or else you lose the game. And then I was like, I'll just make a deck that prevents people from just comboing out, basically. That also is just kind of fun, because I wanted to make a deck that didn't run blue or black, because I thought that would be too easy to just make a competitive deck with blue and or black in it. So I was like,
Why?
I'll
What
just
makes
go
blue
Gruul.
and black easy? It's almost like there's like 2 to 3 cards that make running those colors just.
Well, I mean, there's the entire. I mean, you have the entire like blue interaction suite, then you have the black tutor suite, and then you have efficient combos. And then if you pair it with red, then you get another more efficient combos. That's almost like
You also, I mean, you get a ton of draw and like interaction, counter.
Oh yeah, it also
control,
wins
tutoring.
wins for 3 mana on the stack. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So,
but anyways, yeah. So you decided you wanted to go down the route of the stacks deck because you decided, you know, if I don't want to join them, I might as well try and beat them. You know, specifically beat them over the head brutally with a stick, which has been my philosophy for quite a while with playing as many stacks decks as I do.
Yeah, mine as well.
Or at the very least, make them beat themselves to death with a stick, because they just cast spells and Ruric Thar just swats at them.
And that's what I love about Ruric Thar is, like, he, with the exception of his combat capabilities, he lets you make the choice. Like, is it worth it to force that thing that I'm about to play? If you also have lose 6 life tacked onto it, like, he creates a very cool dynamic to have a game round. And as a stacks deck, it's fun to have one that dictates the table even more so than a normal one would, and it feels like Ruric Thar, because of specifically how the card is structured, definitely can control cEDH games. So
I was very much considering putting in like Shadow Spear to equip onto him, because he does the damage. So I would just, if I cast a non-creature, I would take 6, then gain 6.
That's actually really cool.
I was gonna say that doesn't even sound that bad. That sounds really good.
Huh.
I mean, I gain 6 every time they cast a non-creature spell, because they eat 6 and then I gain 6.
Yeah, it's probably too like.
It's pretty cute.
Yeah, it's probably too cute. Like.
Yeah.
But what is Shadow Spear's
cool.
other text? What does it do for
You
one?
can make things like not have hexproof and indestructible, right? Like
So what does that bust? Does that bust up anything specific?
I don't think so, really.
Yeah, that's the only place I would. That's the
Yeah.
only thing I would say. But it doesn't seem like, especially with the way that our cEDH meta is set up, like our local one, because Sam and I play at the same LGS. We play with generally the same people. Ruric Thar seems really powerful. So
Yeah.
moving on, kind of to that, what would you say are some of the biggest strengths of the deck beyond, what we've already covered, and counteractively, what are some of its bigger weaknesses?
Sure. So with strengths, I think one of the biggest ones is a lot of the few pods I've played in with it, I feel like it gets very like underrated at the beginning, because people are just like, oh, it's just red-green.
The old Duretti problem.
And then it's like, okay, I dropped Ruric Thar turn 2, and then they're just like, okay, I guess we'll do that. Like, I remember one pod I played in, somebody was playing Elsha the Infinite, and I'm like,
I know who that was. I know who that is.
And they're just like, well, that basically means I can't win the game now, because they would kill themselves before they infinite off with Elsha, and I was like,
yeah.
great.
Shout out to my boy Aaron, who every time I played in a pod with him in his Elsha deck, he's just been hated out within the first 3 turns and hasn't been able to combo.
I will say one of the other strengths is it can ramp pretty hard because it has green, and like so it's just the ramp in addition. So it's like the mana dorks in addition to mana rocks. It's just like I can get a lot of mana, so I can feasibly play Ruric Thar turn 2 or 3 pretty consistently, as you know, because I have like the spirit guides and all that stuff too.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a strength. I would say a weakness is it. I mean, I can't just stop stuff at like a counter spell level. Like I have to wait for stuff to come and play. I guess I can Pyroblast or like Red Elemental.
Yeah, I was gonna say, hey, don't diss the red cards. I'd say red has the next best counter spells, so.
Mm-hmm. I also have Tybalt's Trickery in here, so
that is a fantastic card.
No, you're in these cards. You have Tybalt's Trick. Yeah, you have the blast. You have you got guttural spawns in here, deflecting swat. You have Tybalt's Trickery.
Can we just talk about how
you have a few
just
stuff.
Real quick? Let's take a look at how fucked Magic card design is lately. This is a red-green deck where you are playing like a counterspell and a Yawgmoth's Will, and you're not breaking the rules of Commander. What the hell? You're playing Deflecting Swat, which in cEDH is like Force of Will. You're playing Tybalt's Trickery and Underworld. Like, all of those cards are red, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, man.
I'll say also a weakness is it. Well, at first I thought my draw power wouldn't be as great as some other colors, but like if I can get a Sylvan library out pretty early, that helps. Or like, like if I can Glimpse of Nature and then play a bunch of dorks in a turn, I can draw a bunch of stuff. And then I have like Wheel of Fortune and Magus of the Wheel and Wheel of Misfortune. And those with Underworld Breach and Side Diamond are hilarious.
Oh, for fuck's sake, you're running that line too.
Yep.
Man,
Yeah.
So basically what I want to say is like Magic card design is kind of opening up cEDH because like we are the format that gets to play with these super strong cards. And the more powerful cards they print outside of like blue and red and green open up our format in like really unique and interesting ways. And like all these cards that we've talked about, like these are cards that have recently been printed.
Mm-hmm.
So
Breach, Trickery.
I really hope that, there are
Wandering Archaic.
Oh, dude, I went on a 10-minute rant about that card in our set and review. I love that card. I got one out on turn 1 the other night. Oh, it was. I had my opponents looking at their hands, like sighing and saying, okay. And it sat there for a good 4 turns. Great Magic card. So, speaking of Wandering Archaic and your card choices, what are some unique card choices that you think your deck has? Which should be... I'm interested to hear, as a fairly new cEDH player, what you think makes your deck super interesting.
Sure. So, one card... I don't know if these cards are like popular in cEDH or not, but
that's it. That's exactly what I want to hear about, is what you think makes your deck really hum.
So one thing, I think one of my favorite cards in the deck is Vexing Shusher.
Oh, that is definitely a cEDH staple, but go ahead.
Because he can make any spell uncounterable because it's just target spell. So I had a game where they were about to go off with Elsha, and somebody's like, I don't know, they were gonna Beast Within Elsha in response, and they're like, counter, and I'm like, I make his Beast Within uncounterable, and they were just like, F. Like, they couldn't do anything about that, so their Elsha just died, and I was like, this card's awesome. But also, I guess to package with the infinite mana, I have a Gen Wave in here, just to flip the deck over.
That,
and I have,
that is interesting. Because you do have ways to win by just dumping your deck out, so that's really cool.
Because I have Concordant Crossroads, and then I also have a City of Solitude. So if they don't counter the Gen Wave, they just can't respond.
And it's
when
also
City of Solitude hits off Jeff one wave.
If Ruric Thar is in play, you're only taking you're not having to chain together non-creatures to win. You're just paying like essentially 6 life to win. That's shit. We play. We play Adnos in this format, and people go down to, like... I've seen people go down to 1 on Adnos, so 6 life to win doesn't seem like that bad.
Yeah. One thing
most of my combos are permanent based, so...
Yeah. I do like the City of Solitude.
I wanted to talk about that too, but go ahead, yeah.
I'm in most of the time, I am not a fan of like effects that you say players can only cast on each turn, even in stacks, because what it does is it creates like situations where if you play this out and you don't make use of it, then basically you're just giving the game to the next person who has a combo because it symmetrically affects everyone. But in this deck, I think it's nice. You can play it almost as like a silence. Like you don't have to play it like as a stacks piece, like earlier on. You can be like you said with the Genesis Wave, it comes out with the Genesis Wave thing, or like you earlier mentioned the Underworld Breach LED Wheel of Fortune. One of the issues with that is like, oh well, you're in colors that won't be getting a ton of interaction, and so you're filling everyone's hands up. Play City of Solitude, and it's just like, voila, I just do this. That's really neat.
In theory, I would play City of Solitude either through Breach, like from the yard, or get it off Gen Wave, or just cast it and see if it resolves, and then try to win the game that turn.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Because I think that outside of that situation, you could like end up screwing yourself. But that's
I almost think your deck could do, and I don't know if you're open to suggestions, but I almost think that you could do with something, seeing as you're running Earthcraft Squirrel Nest, and like you have a way to Gen Wave into both of those, you should be running some kind of like sack outlet, something like a
Goblin Bombardment.
Like Goblin Bombardment, which... Topical was just spoiled as part of Modern Horizons 2. Modern Masters. Or like a Perforos, which is kind of a nice effect to have, especially with, as you said, you have the mana generation for it. So, but one card that I wanted to specifically point out was you have all of these, or I wanted to ask you have all these untap effects, like Mobilize and Vitalize, which are just like 1 in a green, untap all your creatures. What are those for?
So what I can do is if I Squirrel Nest Earthcraft combo and they all have haste, they all have to tap themselves to untap the land. So I can untap all the squirrels and swing that turn. Or tap a bunch of mana dorks, untap all the mana dorks, retap them, and then like
Ritual.
Overrun twice with Azuri, and then just like straight murder people with mana dorks.
Okay.
That's basically the thought. Because I also have like Priest of Titania and Elvish Archmage to like, so I could just get like a bunch of mana if I need to.
Okay. And then 26 lands.
Yeah.
How does 26 lands feel in a stack?
I mean, because I have a ton of mana dorks and like rocks and stuff, it seems to be fine.
Okay.
26. I will say, is low for even cEDH decks. You typically find between 28 and 30. 28 being what's like often considered to be the lowest, and 30 being like kind of on the higher end of some decks.
I think I only run 28 in Urza, but I run like 30 in Duretti.
Yeah,
just for context.
Which is really interesting that in this deck with all of the mana sources that you have, you only have 26, and it's it's working out for you. That's really cool to see.
If it works, it works. I mean, shit, but
yeah,
just like on paper, it looks scary to me. So for the last like 10 minutes of the show, I wanted to ask you a few questions, just as a fairly new cEDH player to someone that might be just like they're standing in the doorway looking in. They think they see someone they know and they think it might be okay, but just maybe some answers that might, pull people in the door. So, what initially made you interested in cEDH?
So, like I said,
was it John?
Was
it John?
No, I think it was. I don't remember.
John is John's the manager of our LGS, and once he kind of gets into something, he kind of canes it as hard as he can. So that's why, thanks to John, we actually have like a decent sized cEDH community in our area. So that's why I asked. Sorry, I just realized that we should probably have some context for that.
I was just saying from an outside perspective, I always saw it as like it's just a win as fast as you can. I mean, I guess that's kind of Magic. Like, a lot of things are like that, but it's like, just try to win. If you don't win on turn 3, then you lose the game type of a thing. Or it's just like, okay, you just go for the same line every single time. And in my brain, I was like, that sounds boring. And then I realized there's a lot more to it than that, because there's like a lot of interaction in cEDH. Like, I think probably more compared to like some casual EDH or just like other formats. And I think that keeps it really interesting, that there's a lot of back and forth, and there's been very few times in the games I've played, at least, where somebody's just like, okay, I just win and nobody can do anything about it. Like, usually somebody has like a response and they might have some defense for it, but there's at least a little bit of interaction. And also I was like, well, I have some cards that I would feel bad putting in like a casual deck, because people can get kind of butthurt when
Winter Orb.
Yeah. Things like that. Where they're just like, why would you play that? We're trying to have fun. And I was just like, well, I have these cards that I'm never going to use, so I might as well put them in a deck that would be playing at the same power level.
Sean and I think Winter Orb are fun, right, Sean? Winter Orb is fun. It's fun for me when I tap it down on your end.
It's not one of my preferred stack spaces.
So when you started to look into cEDH, did you feel like the format was? Did you feel like, just looking at it, that maybe it seemed to discourage brewing and exploration more than it actually does? Like, how open did it feel to you in terms of like designing, like building decks? Mm-hmm. Did you feel there was a place for brewing, or like you had to pick one of the meta decks?
So it seemed like, again, from an outside perspective, it's like, okay, well, if you're building a cEDH deck, you have to have like these 40 cards in the deck, and then you have like, okay, then you add lands, and it's like, okay, well, now you have like 10 cards that you can do your own.
It's not necessarily because everything else
incorrect. Is like, man. Yeah,
to be fair, any more than that, I'd have like terrible like indecision anxiety. I think it's perfect for me.
Oh yeah, me too. But I was just curious.
Are you telling me I only have to decide like these 10 flex slots, and the rest of the deck built itself? Sign me up. Literally the first deck I built.
Yeah, that was
me. The first deck I built was Rograk Silas, and there were 10 flex slots ever.
Me and Basil are putting together a modern deck for me, and I was like, I want to customize as little of it as possible. And he's like giving me all these options, and I'm like, no. stock list, and I will provide 4 cards for the sideboard.
Dude, I just buy the stock lists and then just play those. Like random people's stock lists.
So that's what you saw like on the outside. Do you think that that's held true? Like that it's you have to pick those cards, or did you feel like you were able to bring your own kind of take into the format?
I think, I mean, a little of both in the sense it's like, okay, I got to figure out what do I want my win condition to be, type of a thing. You know, it's like, and it's like, okay, if I'm going to be competing at a high level where, you know, cEDH is, like, what are, like, 2 card combos that I can execute easily in the colors that I want to play at? So, like, I basically started at, like, okay, I want to play Ruric Thar because I think he's hilarious. And it's like, okay, I can put in these stack pieces to kind of, you know, slow down the, like, people who are just going to go turbo mode. And then it's like, okay, what are 2 card combos in green-red that I can just shove into the deck? And then that's kind of how I started building. And then I just got tips from other people of like, oh, this would be really good in here because this is just a really good card. Like, you should probably have this in here. I think Ray gave me a suggestion of, since you're playing Ruric Thar, if there's a card that has a creature equivalent, run the creature equivalent over the other card. So like run Rec Sage instead of Naturalize or Nature's Claim, even though I have Nature's Claim in the deck still because it's still pretty good.
Yeah,
you can blow up your own thing and only lose 2 life.
Yeah.
So I listened to your podcast, and I specifically remember the episode where you and our mutual friend Nick talked about brewing interesting casual decks. Like one that I remember him coming up to me and talking excitedly about was his Always Sunny in Philadelphia themed deck.
Yes.
Where he had like I think Grumgully was it Charlie or Frank?
I think it's Frank.
Anyways. So, would you say that's more your background when it comes to EDH?
Yeah, so I really like making off-the-cuff decks, I guess, or like
Would you say strange
really
brews?
Yes.
Yeah.
You plugged the title. You said the title.
I did. I said the name of the movie in the movie.
Credits.
So,
but yes, I would say I enjoy making things that are not, I don't know, not
conventional,
but like, yeah, things that are like I've always been like that. It's even in like Constructed. Like, I remember when I used to play Standard like a while ago. I remember I made a deck that had the win condition was Mortal Kombat.
Oh my
and that
god!
was legal in Standard. And it was great because I think I won. I didn't like get first at F&M, but I won enough games where I like got packs or whatever, and it was great because that was when Red Raccoon was still Grafalia's.
Oh geez, that was at the other LGS in our town for anyone missing context. That was a long time ago.
Yeah. The owner at the time was Ken, and he when I won with it, he actually like signed on the Mortal Kombat. Sam Bradley won with this card and dated it, and it was amazing.
That's pretty cool. I really like Ken. He owns the most expensive Magic cards I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
So coming from more of a casual EDH background, but one with, that kind of, I'll just say it, strange brews mentality in mind, what do you, as someone who's new to cEDH, what do you see as the biggest, actually, let's do the biggest similarities between cEDH and EDH, because I think we could spend, a lot of time talking about the differences, but that's not what we're about. We don't want to differentiate. We want to be inclusive and try and get people to play. So what would you say are some similarities that people might not expect?
So I would say that there is, so far from what I've seen, there's been a lot more variety in decks, and like ways that people are trying to win other than just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna storm. Like, I know a lot of the decks do storm because that's a really good, a mechanic that's really useful for just winning the game. But
that or Consult Oracle, are kind of the two
yeah,
main win cons.
Mm-hmm. So, like, it's just like, so, for example, like, I haven't thus far been in a pod where I've seen the same commander twice. Like, I've played against Gitrog, Najila, Elsha, played against Pyr and Toothy.
Was it Tom
played
with
against,
the Pyr and Toothy deck?
Yeah, it was Tom.
I want to have him on sometime to talk about that deck.
I played Pyr and
funny.
Toothy the other day.
It's a fun deck. It is wacky, but...
Mm-hmm. I played against Marchesa, the Mardu one. Queen Marchesa.
Probably piloted by Basil, I'm guessing, who was the original architect for that deck, and then I kind of co-opted it and did some work on it for the cast.
Also played against Kirk and Tegrid.
Oh, how was she? I want to brew her. Really bad.
it was fine for me. I generally don't have a lot of cards in my hand, so like I can hellbent myself pretty easily and just kind of deal with it. It's mostly the creature sacking was pretty obnoxious.
Yeah, I know. It sounds fun.
I was playing a bit of. I tried to play a bit of Turgid on MTGO, but then I realized. But I figured out that it was actually bugged on there.
Oh, what? Of course it is. But
the interaction with Pox effects was because how effects that sack a bunch of stuff all at once work is that it all happens, and then all of the things that would trigger from those things, whether it be death triggers or Turgid's trigger, they just all happen. If they all happen within the resolution of the spell, it then checks the state big,
it checks after the spell is fully resolved, right?
After the spell is fully resolved. But what happened is on Pox, you sack the creature, so I attacked Turgid, and then everyone sacks lands after. It didn't give me the lands, even though it definitely was supposed to, because it was all within the one resolution of the spell. And I'm like, now I'm just kind of out, because I was kind of hoping I would get those lands, so I'd have more mana, so I could recast Turgid and other things.
Fuck
that was
MTGO.
very
I love it, but fuck
really,
MTGO, and I'm just gonna throw an F in chat for like Grist, the new planeswalker that's an insect everywhere else.
It's gonna be so bugged.
That card might be. I have like a conspiracy theory that WotC created that card specifically to just destroy MTGO as a client and force everyone to go to Arena. No, hear me out. I've got Pepe Sylvia notes all over my office. But anyways, my last question for you, Sam, is: do you think you'll continue with cEDH? Did you have fun?
Yeah, no, I've definitely had fun with it. I think, because then that way I can basically have an outlet to use those really good or I guess taboo cards that people playing in casual games don't want to see. Like I just have a spot I can. I just have a spot I can. Oh, I have an outlet for using all those good cards, and then I can use all the bad janky cards in casual Magic.
You know what? I have never actually thought about it that way, but that's a really good selling point for cEDH. Is if you genuinely like playing stacks like I did, that's how I came into the format. Was I loved playing stacks and nobody liked stacks, so I tried to find a place where I could play it, and cEDH was what I found. So
do you like playing combos? But your casual play group gets really upset if you win in literally any other way other than some really annoying Super Friends deck. Or really beating people to death.
Let's cut the personal attacks out.
This is my personal experience. I am very traumatized by all of this.
Next time you come at a Super Friends deck, make sure you got the firepower to back it up, buddy. Storev. I'm gonna hand Storev Lucille, and I'm gonna send him to your door.
No, Storev's fine. You're in Golgari.
Hey,
fancy stuff.
There's a new green-black commander for super friends. Like, WotC is pushing it. Somebody at WotC is reading my tweets.
Oh, yeah.
One's green black super friend. I mean, you're not even wrong though.
Like, literally, they printed a green black planeswalker, and one of my favorite legendary creatures of the past like decade. The formatting for his second ability, we're talking about Karth the Lion, that I'm not going to read because we'll cover it in our set and review. But that second ability, seeing the loyalty symbol, is just so, like, it's so wrong, and I love it. Like, seeing it on a creature, and, like, the way it's worded makes it sound like it's a taxing effect, but it's not. And,
Yeah.
Because technically all loyalty abilities are a cost, even when they add things.
Yeah.
Like you paying the cost. The
It's
cost.
so good. It's like up there with Storev. It does not replace Storev in the command zone, which I mentioned to these gentlemen, but fuck, I might try it because it's really good. Anyways, that brings us to the end of the show. Sam, where can people find you out on the interwebs?
Yeah, so I have a podcast that I run. I post on YouTube. The YouTube channel is just my name, Sam Bradley, but you'll probably have to search that with the name of the podcast, which is Random PIK.
We'll link it in the description.
It's Random People I Know is what it's short for. But that's basically what I do. I just interview random people I know on things that they're passionate about. So that is that. That's,
awesome.
Yeah.
Sean, where can people find you?
You can find me at Destingerly on Twitter. We're talking a lot about all the Modern Horizons spoilers, interacting with fellow cEDH community members and content creators on there, just kind of chatting about all different spoilers and just having a good time looking at all that.
That is hot.
I'm very excited to talk about this in the future because it's really it's got some really cool stuff, really cool. Like cards and commanders, and it's very wacky stuff too. So yeah, if you want to hear me talking about that, I've just been kind of chatting on there. That's pretty much it for me. Don't really have much else. At DeathSingerly on Twitter.
You can find me at 2intoblue on Twitter, where I swear I am still a cEDH account. It's just whenever a new set comes out and there are green and or black cards in it, I immediately think of my casual deck, my baby Storev. But I have a cEDH account. I generally do the same thing as Sean, interact with people in the community, try and kind of spread the word on the community, try and get more people involved in cEDH. You can follow the cast at SBS_cast, where we post everything regarding new uploads, teasing new videos we might be doing, new collaborations, and then you can find new episodes of the podcast right here on YouTube, where you already are, every Sunday at noon Central Time. So, Sam, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a fun time.
Yeah, so until next time, I'm Josh.
I'm John.
And this has been another episode of Strange Brews.
Thank you, everybody.